Hello, what's up guys, I'm Kyle from KGR, and this is the Revoltech Zurg. Now, when Revoltech announced that they were redoing their Toy Story line, and Toy Story is one of my favorite movies of all time, I got very excited, and I missed out on the first launch of the figures. So I got Woody and Buzz, and after playing with them, they ended up becoming some of my favorite figures in my whole collection. So when they announced Zurg, a brand new character they haven't done before, I got very excited. And now that I have him in my hands, I've never been so anxious playing with a figure before in my life. Not because he's Zurg and he's a big bad guy, villain, evil, whatever. No, it's because I accidentally broke the first one I got, and this is my second one. I want to thank the guys over at Nin Game for supplying me with another one, because they didn't have to. I just asked and told them, hey, it broke. Can I get another one? And thankfully they were very generous enough to send me another one. I was gonna go directly to the company, but I had no way of contacting them. But I kind of call it a happy accident because the first figure was not polished. I know why the first figure broke, and it's not because of the lack of polish, but I did notice some things going from the first one to this one. But before I do anything, I want to go over the sculpt of this figure, and he looks absolutely stunning. I've had one Zurg figure prior to this, and it was around this size. I never had the full scale one, but this Zurg captures his look so beautifully. Even the misalignment down here, I had a Zurg figure that had the exact same thing as a kid, and the glossy finish just makes him look so nice. I'm pretty sure people will be hit and miss on the gloss finish overall, but personally, I love this thing. And the paint is mostly good. I noticed how nice the Zurg logo looks, but other stuff around here, let's say up here, we got a little bit of red bleeding into the black, or around his cuffs, you got some red bleeding into the silver a little bit, especially on this arm. I really notice it in here, but I think it's more the silver bleeding into the red than anything. It's not perfect, but it looks good anyway. It's not completely sloppy. And I love the attention to detail. Like I mentioned earlier, how this doesn't line up right, because I think it's supposed to be like that, because the first figure I had as a kid was the exact same way. But I love the stuff like having the wheels on the bottom so you can actually roll him around if you really want to. Or my favorite attention to detail, if you lean his head forward a little bit, you can see the look here with the Zurg logo on the back of his head, like in the Toy Story 2 movie where they're escaping Alice's Toy Barn and you see that point of view. It's so nice. I love it so much. And since I never had the original figure as a kid, I don't know if the original figure had that, which honestly I wouldn't be shocked if it didn't. But I'm very hit and miss on the arms, because I think it would have been nice to have the bicep swivels that you see right at the shoulder right here. I mean, Buzz didn't have it either, and I didn't notice it then, but I noticed it here for some reason instead of there. But there is some limitations to the shoulders. It's mainly me just being extra careful and delicate with this thing. You know that feeling when you see an X that you're not completely over because the wound is too fresh, or you just see somebody that you really don't like and they just make you uncomfortable, they make you sick to your stomach or really weird in your head? That's how I felt handling this figure for a while. I feel like for most people, I feel like handling the figure will just be fine, but because of my past trauma, I don't think I'm gonna be that comfortable handling this figure for a while. So you do have some limits in the shoulders, but for the most part, as long as you know how to handle a figure, you should be fine. And then because of how he's sculpted, you have the cuts right at the elbow right here, but when you try to rotate it, you do have limitations, so be careful when it comes to rotating it. And then you have this peg hole right here for his blaster, which honestly I don't find very necessary. After playing with it, it felt like I was hindering the experience putting that thing in than just letting it go. Then we got a bit of an ab crunch, but when you put the blaster on, it kind of makes it way too front heavy. But if you're doing just regular poses, he's fine. And then we got the very tiny ball hinges around the wrist. This was actually the scariest thing going into it before I even unboxed the figure. Thankfully, these haven't snapped on me yet, but all I can say is this is definitely not a kid's toy. Be very careful with this thing. And then we got a ball hinge for the thumb, but I noticed a ball peg for the hand. So you can move these around wherever you want. And if you put his fingers down, you can even rotate it to make it look like he's cuffing it even more. I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I think it's fine. At first I didn't like it, but when I noticed that I could do that, it does kind of add a little bit more dynamicness, if that's a real word, to this. So I think it's kind of cool. It still disappoints me that you can't do fists with this either, but whatever. And again, handling this thing scares the crap out of me. And then for some reason, the cape has like 4 ball hinges on it. I don't know why they had to go that excessive with it, but okay. And also rotating his head, I can't not stab myself as I'm moving it. It's not that it's sharp, it's just not comfortable because it is a very tight neck. But overall, a very solid Zurg figure. I do like this, but let's go on to the accessories because he comes with the coolest blaster. I love it. So we're gonna put him down and we're gonna focus on this. When I first saw this, I was so scared on how this thing would handle because of everything being on ball hinges. I'm like, oh man, this thing's not gonna be able to flow that easily, especially with how tight some of these joints can be. But no, like, it flows a lot smoother than I expected, at least when you're just handling it. When you actually have it on Zurg, it feels tougher to handle because you don't have as much freedom as you have like in just your hands. But overall, better than I expected. Now you see this double ball hinge right here. This is supposed to peg into his arm. But like I said earlier, I noticed trying to handle this thing and trying to pose it becomes a lot more difficult if you have this pegged in, which honestly, I think I'm gonna take that joint out. And it should just peg in. Yeah, see? Yeah, you can take that out, and honestly, from what I noticed playing with it, like, he holds it just fine. You don't need this. And then this grip right here, this is all just for aesthetics. You don't have Zurg manually hold this thing. He comes with a separate hand. Oh, and he also comes with an extra ball. We'll get into that soon, but this thing likes to roll around a lot. So yeah, you just simply slide this out, and then just slide this new one in, and then bing bada boom, you're good. But something I noticed with the first figure that I got, you can see there's a little bit of like a molding stem or whatever right here. It wasn't sanded down properly on my first one, so it was literally impossible for me to get it into this. So I had to sand that down myself. So if you notice it, it's a quality control issue. I wish I could say more about it or like say I'm sorry, but unfortunately, I don't know if the quality control is not there or what the story is with that. But unfortunately, I had a defective figure. But we're not completely done with the gun because there are more features with this thing besides looking pretty and moving around. First up, I love the balls just like hanging out in there. Like, this is so freaking cool. And it looks like there's a spring in there, but that's just sculpted in there. Like, you can't actually press this thing down. But the attention to detail inside this thing is incredible. But some things you can do with this thing. For example, this gauge right here, you can move this as much as you want. It's so neat. And also, you can rotate the barrels. But it is very stiff. I would say, like, you get a blow dryer, heat this thing up before you do anything with it. Moving it the first time, I heard a slight snap, but I think it was just like paint or something. I don't know. Point is, I felt a snap, it didn't break, and I was able to move it. But now, it's tough again. So to get this thing on, first we're gonna put this back on him, okay? And then we gotta put this cape up, and there's like a little peg right here, or a little like stem or something. It's supposed to hide the illusion that there's a hole there, okay? So we're gonna throw that over there. So what I like to do first is put the grip on first. So we're gonna take off this hand, we're gonna slide this on, and then typically you put the peg in, but getting it in there is such a pain. I took it out. I'm not worrying about it anymore. And then we're just gonna rotate this and peg that into his back, and now he has his blaster. And if you rotate, if you extend his arm and have it out, as you can tell, he holds onto it relatively well. But then again, this is a fresh figure. I've had this figure for a couple of days, and I had him in a pose like this for a couple of days, and thankfully it didn't give out on it. But he does come with a stand, as you see right here, and with some of the promo pictures that I saw, they had this stand propping up the ball that I just dropped. Anyway, so they had the stand propping up his gun, which for top balancing issues, I guess that's fine. But I think it's also mainly so you don't wear out the joints. So do I recommend keeping him like this? Probably not. But Revoltech joints are very tight and very nice, so I don't see them wearing out as bad as something like Bring Arts or SH Figure Arts or anything. So I'm gonna do it. But as you can tell, he does end up becoming very front heavy. So what they do to compensate for that, instead of using a stand on him, he comes with his own proprietary little like kickstand, I guess. So there's a hole on the bottom of this, so you can put that in there so he doesn't roll around, and thankfully it does keep him up very, very well. And when I have him displayed in my collection, this is how I have him displayed, because thankfully with other figures around him, it kind of does hide this base, so you don't worry about it as much. But the fact that you would need him with a base to keep him up like this, unfortunately, science is the reason for that, but it kind of does ruin the aesthetic of it, especially if you want to have one like actually properly holding up his gun for him. So if you don't mind trying to hide the base around other figures, it's gonna look good on your shelf, unless you don't want that and then you just want him to just not have his blaster, which I feel like him not having his blaster is just as silly as Buzz Lightyear not having his wings. It's necessary, you gotta have it. But trying to maneuver his arm while he has the blaster on is absolutely terrifying. But like thankfully, like this, if you don't peg the thing into his wrist, you do have a lot more leeway to like really move this the way you need to. But again, be very careful because I'm pretty sure everything's delicate from his shoulder to his wrist. And even if I like lean him down and make it so he's like shooting down at an angle, it does support his weight really well. So if you want a good Zurg figure, this is a fantastic figure. And I'm really happy that they included the little stem for the base thing, because without that, it would have killed the aesthetic of displaying this figure and it would have completely ruined it. But even without any of this on, if you have somewhat uneven floors and you have him on, his wheels are just gonna try to make him move. So this thing is almost necessary. But when it comes to the ball, it has a little hole in here. So if you bought the Woody and Buzz figures, Buzz has a hand dedicated to holding Lenny and it has a peg in it. So if you have that, you can use this to help him play catch with Zurg after they have their dramatic fight in the elevator. Or if you want, if you have the Kingdom Hearts Toy Story figures, you can have him fight Zurg. That's a fight I feel like that should have happened in Kingdom Hearts, but it never did. And this thing is still rolling around. As you can tell, I have an uneven floor. So do I recommend this? Absolutely. It's just so terrifying, on my end at least. I hope you don't suffer as much anxiety as I do when it comes to handling this thing. But I feel like if you handled the Buzz Lightyear just fine, you're gonna do fine with this. And it has me curious on what they're gonna do next, because they've done a Jessie figure in the past, which I kind of want to get, but it's so expensive now because it's discontinued. And are we gonna get other characters? Are we gonna get Bullseye? Are we gonna get, I don't know, who else is in Toy Story that matters? So yes, I love this thing, but I think this is gonna be one of those figures that like once I have it in a pose, I'm probably not gonna touch much of it again. Mainly because I'm terrified, but I don't think I love him as much as Woody and Buzz, because with those two together, like there's like so much you can do with them. While with Zurg, I don't know what all I can do with him besides look menacing and like fight Buzz or something, or maybe fight Sora. For an action figure, he is very limited, but I'm happy I got him because man, he is so cool. But if you do want to grab this Zurg yourself, there will be links in the description for this, some of them being affiliate links, so it does help me out if you do buy from those. But let me know in the comments, are you going to be grabbing Zurg? Who's your favorite Toy Story villain? And I don't know about you, but this is Zurg. Not the Zurg that we got from the new Lightyear movie. That movie was crap. But I want to thank you guys so much for watching. So if you're new and you like what you saw, you know what to do. In the description is going to be all my other social media. Thank you for watching. I love you guys to death. And I'll see you on the next one. So peace, peace.